slipping myself. And I used it as an opportunity to keep me accountable, to get up, to drink water, to stretch, to go outside and get some sun. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, when you stop seeing those tweets, is because I have fallen way off the wagon and I'm so inundated. So
Yeah.
I need to make that a priority. Thank you, because I don't know how many people are watching or listening or reading, and that means a lot. That means a lot because I do it because it helps me too, you know?
Yeah, and I think when we do things out of like we're trying to not only improve ourselves and sort of put it out there and be transparent about it. You never really know who you're going to reach, right?
No,
Um,
you just put it out there and hope for the best.
uh,
Hopefully it reaches somebody.
Absolutely. Just want to do a quick hi to the chat. We have Joanna here. We have Rishabh. Sylvia's checking in from Michigan. We got John from SC, South
South
Carolina.
Carolina.
All right, awesome. Colorado Springs in the house. Michael from the UK.
Hey.
Allison from India. We got Andrew here saying afternoon. Hello, everyone. Do make sure to hit a little like up the stream, just let us know that like how you're feeling about this kind of stuff. Anyway, Angela,
Yes.
I know you're at Red Hat now, but I'm
Yes.
assuming you just didn't like just sort of roll into a role at Red Hat, just like casually applied and hey,
Not
right?
even. Not
Can you,
even.
I want to get right into it. I want to know what was your first role, and can you tell me a little bit about how you landed it?
Oh, I would be happy to. So I was I started out as a secretary, like in an insurance company, and they used to have all these classes you can take to learn, Windows and Unix and networking and this and hardware and all this stuff, and I used to take all these classes, right? Because we could, it was free.
Cool.
And I worked for a gentleman who was a programmer by trade, but he was the vice president of our division. And, he was like, wow, you're really taking all these classes. You're getting, real slick, just, you're so helpful now. I'm literally doing tech support for my department. Like I'm the secretary, but I'm doing tech support for the department. He's like,
Mm,
how about you make this official? Like you become the tech support person for the department. And because we had a bigger department in a different location, I went to this other location and that was like my first help desk position. And then after that, the drive was killing me. But after that, I joined a company. I was on their help. That was my first like real, like I kind of transitioned. I was still a secretary, but I was, help desk was the way. Like I
yeah.
learned so much about everything
Yeah.
technical because I touched everything that or interfaced with everything at some point. It was literally the best gateway into this seat where I'm sitting in right now with that red hat over my shoulder. It was definitely the best, but best gateway.
That's a little. I don't know if people notice the red hat is right behind,
Oh
on my
yeah.
shoulder, but that's
That-
always neat to see it there. You already tapped into like a bunch of things that I want to talk about, but I think the first thing is you mentioned sort of just learning things, taking
yes.
classes, doing things like that. What how did you sort of I guess learn things for that first role?
Mm.
Like what was your like approach? Because when you're getting started, it's like, well, what do I even need to learn? Like, what do I use? Do I need books? Do I need classes? What's your background in education and all that kind of thing?
So let me level set. This happened in the 90s. So don't I'm probably older than a lot of folks on this stream, but that's when before YouTube, that was before a lot of the online learning platforms that we know and we love. It
Right.
was taking a class, it was buying a book, it was, reading hard back material to learn and do.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it was back then.
Yeah.
Um, and you would, have like your test servers or systems and you would play around with them and you'd break, fix, and do things like that. So it was a lot of hands on. You had to be self motivated because there was nothing there to kind of keep you tied. There was like, not your alerts on your phone telling you you haven't learned today. Like, it was none of that. It was none of that. It was, this is something that I want to learn. I want to get better at it. And the more you do it, the more you read about it, the more you try it, the more you talk about it, you just develop an acumen for it. Not, you're not perfect because you're every interaction you're learning a little bit more.
Right.
And Thank God for YouTube, because that literally helped change my trajectory a whole, like, from 0 to 100. It was just phenomenal. Like,
Right.
yeah, it
and
was phenomenal.
around your first role for it, were you did you go to college for like, do you have a technical degree?
No, I don't. So I have a business degree. And I will say this, I did want to be a computer science major, but I
Yeah.
couldn't pass calculus.
Oof. You and me both. Don't get me
So
started.
it's like, oh, you can't pass calculus, ma'am. I'm sorry, you can't be a computer science major. So I
Yeah.
became a business major
Hmm.
and business communications. So I learned about communications. I had a really well-rounded liberal arts education, that I'm very grateful for, because I can talk about anything to anybody. Shout out to liberal arts colleges, because they give you a really good foundation. Now, would I've been happy with a computer science degree? Heck yeah. Like,
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to do, but I just couldn't do calculus. Like, that was that barrier. And to some, that's not really a barrier, but sometimes there's so many barriers, right?
Right.
So I didn't learn tech in college. I
Mhm.
learned it outside of it,
Yeah, on the job kind of.
on the job, on the side. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's interesting that you tap into that the aspect of learning to communicate well, because I can imagine now as a solution architect, you're all about your ability to communicate
That's
your
exactly right.
solutions and all those kinds of things, right? We'll dive into that a little later, because
Okay.
there's like so much that we need to get into about like before, right?
Yes. Yes.
I'm curious about, well, how do you remember interviewing for your first like official help desk role? Because I know you mentioned you started in a secretary role and then moved
Yes.
into your first help desk role. I would love to sort of just like, if you can like remember things, maybe something sticks out, or like what was it like?
Okay. Let me take you back. The year is 1997. And I am interviewing at a chemical company for a help desk position.
Mhm.
And the help desk was like a room full of people, supporting this, multinational company, right? And I got interviewed by this guy, and he was like one of the smartest people I'd ever come in contact with. He was just
Mhm.
so tech and so nice and so down to earth. So fast forward, I get this job. I'm surrounded by people who have done this for many years,
Mhm.
who was, this was their career of choice. I had people who were career switchers who came into the IT department, but we were a part of a bigger IT organization. So of course we have like the networking team and the bench, the people who actually do the hardware. So it was a conglomerate of folks down there working in this huge area.
Mhm.
And I got really good at walking people through these technical issues.
Right.
This is where I started kind of like writing my own, SOPs. We called them SOPs. What do we call it? Something, something. I can't remember the acronym, but you would write these things that would help you like troubleshoot issues. And I got really good at kind of writing these little scripts out to
Yeah.
standard operating procedures. Good Lord. Anyway, so this is how you would fix this. So that was kind of like my first dip into writing documentation,
Right.
right? Like writing these SOPs for myself. And then at some point it was for other, for the department. And then I kind of, I got antsy. Like I was like watching over the wall. You can see the bench people doing the hardware work. That's what I was doing when I was at my old spot. I learned about, taking computers apart, replacing hard drives and memory. So
Mhm.
I wound up going to the bench at some point. And I was there for a while. And then because we were contractors, they were going to not renew the contract, went
Mhm.
to another place, was on the help desk, and I didn't like it. So I
Mhm.
wind up going back, and they were like, no, we'll keep you. We'll keep you. So again, went to another help desk position. And then that's where I got into networking and servers and Linux and Windows and DNS and DHCP and all this. So I
Okay.
was the only help desk person the company had. It was just me and this contractor. And he was kind of like, yeah, well, let me just show you the ropes, what we're doing here, because they're going to kick him out the door now that I'm here.
Yeah.
And that's where it started. I literally had to, it was a company that owned, like 117 funerals and uh, funeral homes and cemeteries, right? I was the only tech support person. And then eventually it
Jeez.
had grown. I moved from help desk to more networking servers. I mean, this was NT4, Exchange 5.5. That's literally how I did it. I learned
Mhm.
by doing. And being able to show them the acumen, like this girl picks things up really easy, really quickly. She can talk to people, she can communicate, she knows how to, she knows her way around a server, she can rack and she can stack. Like I was gold, right? And
Right.
I learned so much there. Shout out to my old boss, Jeff. He was the best mentor that you could ever have because he had faith in me.
Yeah. Yeah.
He had
Give you a
so
shot, give
much
you a
faith in
chance.
me. Yep.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think so. So those first few years, and I remember my career as well. You're not only overwhelmed, you're also confused. You don't really know who you can rely on. And I think we share this in common in terms of like one, help desk was how we both sort of got into where we're at now. Two, also just having a manager that believed in us. But I think you don't just sort of stumble onto that. Of course, it's sort of like 50% of the I guess the opportunity is like having someone who's willing to believe in you. But that to sort of gain that, you also have to like put in a lot of work. I remember doing like a lot of overtime, staying a little later just to have some more face-to-face time with the manager, with a different team, like getting all my stuff done as soon as I could so I could go shadow different teams. And also just having the interest and sort of putting myself out there and educating myself on my own time. That way, when I did have exposure to those other teams, I knew what to ask, I knew what to look at, all those kinds of things, right?
Exactly.
And those opportunities, I'm not saying they're unique to help desk positions, but I'm just saying the, like you mentioned, the amount of things that you do get exposed to at a help desk role, at a support
Yes.
role, at like a like front of the line role, it's just I don't see another role in tech that is like that, right?
That
And
touches
I
all the things.
touches your entire tech stack at where you work in a help desk role, you're going to be exposed to some degree and in that role, because everything needs support and everyone needs support. So I remember, from I used to work at like a health clinic. So from the nurses to the CEOs, CFOs, CIOs, CTOs to the doctors, everyone at some point needed some sort of help desk assistance. And
Yes.
you never know what kind of conversations might come up, what kind of like people skills that you develop because of this. And I am so you might feel this way too. Like when you're in your help desk role, you're like, I hate this. I can't wait to leave. Looking back at it now, I'm like, I am so grateful for the time that I spent there. I would have never developed into who I am now without that time. My ability to communicate comes from that. My ability to document. There is no role out there that requires more documentation skills than help desk.
Preach.
I'm telling you, from this person came up to me at this time, approached me this way via this method. This was their issue. This is how they talked to me about it. This is how they encountered the issue. This is how I replicated it. This is what I tried. This is what didn't work. This is what didn't work. This is what didn't work. This is what it kind of worked. This is what solved it. This is how I recommend it. And that amount of questions that you need to document is for every single issue and every single support ticket that comes up to you. And you're not doing just one a day, right?
No.
if you're
No.
if you're assisting several locations like you mentioned, you're
Mhm.
doing like, I don't know, several an hour.
Yes.
And that every single day. And after, just think of it, just in the time span of a year, how much you end up documenting, right?
Exactly. You don't even think about it, but it makes you much more proficient. It makes you more detail oriented because what if you're not here the next day and someone calls?
Mm-hmm.
They need to see what you've done, what you've said, what you've tried. No one wants to reinvent the wheel. So
Exactly.
being able to document those processes and procedures so you can help your fellow coworker out. You don't want to leave them in a lurch. You know what I mean? And to help future you out. Future them, future you. Like you're doing everybody a service when you're being very thorough and documenting your procedures.
Yeah,
For sure.
nothing's worse than like you go into your ticketing system and you search for, oh, maybe someone's resolved this. You search for it, you find a ticket that's like exactly the maybe the title is exactly the issue you're having, but the documentation is like, oh, fixed. That's it.
Do better.
Yeah, and I wanted to sort of dive into like with your first sort of years in tech, and I get this question a lot. I was like, when do you know you're ready to take the next step? Like, how much time is an ideal time to be in like that entry level gig before taking the next step? And I know you mentioned that you sort of naturally started to like progress into like the networking stuff, but does anything like any scenario or any time or current experience sort of like just pop into your mind? Like that's exactly when I knew that that was the next thing that I wanted to work on.
Well, because I had my foot in both worlds, right?
Mm-hmm.
When they started hiring people to do help desk specifically, that was their role. That gave me the ability to kind of take my foot off of that pedal and
Mm-hmm.
put it somewhere else. Like that was when I was able to kind of cut the cord because now I'm onboarding those people, right? Because I still have my job of, they called me a network admin because we did networking and server administration. But
Mm-hmm.
um, that was when it got real. Because then when I was totally separated from it, because they had a help desk and I was, the admin, my role just kind of the hat just kind of came on and I just
Mm-hmm.
stopped doing it because I was in the same company. Now, once I am comfortable and I'm this admin, I was like, okay, I'm ready to take this show on the road. And how do
Yeah.
you know? How do you know? You feel comfortable, right? I was at this place for a couple of years, right? And I felt comfortable enough to start one, got to see what's out there, I wanted to work in a different vertical. So I'd worked in, business. I wanted to work in higher ed, right? I'd never done it. I thought it was cool. They get a lot of vacation. I was like, okay. So I started looking for higher education positions and I found one. And that was when, this was, gosh, I'm so old. This was this was a while ago. I think this was maybe early 2000s, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now I am a fully fledged Windows systems administrator. So that, it took about a good, I want to say back there, maybe 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
maybe give or take a few, where I had that transition from secretary to help desk, getting that first and second real help desk job,
Mm-hmm.
getting that third hybrid job where I kind of grew into the server and networking piece
Mm-hmm.
till it was fully fledged, servers, Active Directory, VMware. Well, that was even before VMware came out, but it felt so the growth felt so organic, like it just came to me.
Yeah.
I think if I would have worked in a different vertical it could have probably been different,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but that was just my path, and I learned so much along the way. I wouldn't change a thing.
Absolutely. I feel like sometimes I got this question the other day. It's like, would you have wished to like started in cloud from like from a junior cloud engineer being like your first gig in tech? And I was asked this, and I'm like, no way. No way,
No
right?
way.
Because I was exposed to so much the help desk and then the sysadmin gig. And this is a question I wanted to ask you: like,
Mhm.
what role outside of help desk do you think was probably like the most impactful one? And if you look
Mm.
back and like, what year did I or what role did I really just like suffer? Like what I was like was just like so hard, but like challenged me so much like that, right? For me, it was my sysadmin gig, and what I was saying, like for my sysadmin gig and then moving into more of like a junior cloud engineer and then full cloud engineer kind of thing, like that would have never happened without like everything else and every sort of tech that I was exposed
Yep.
to. And now full circle coming into like my advocacy role, it's like I can now talk about tech that I probably wasn't working on as a cloud engineer. Maybe I was doing like sysadmin or help desk and things like that, but I wouldn't be able to talk about that now if I hadn't had gone through all those kinds of things, right?
Exactly.
So I wouldn't change it. I mean, I think it's easy to sort of like when you want to get started, it's like go straight into, I guess, the role that you want to get into or the field you want
Hmm.
to get into. But like, don't let that stop you from maybe trying out some other things the only reason I say this is because like help desk is very entry level friendly, and
Very
also
much.
I also see help desk roles having like great educational like benefits where it be like, oh, maybe we'll pay for your certifications or we'll pay for your educational
Yes.
content or things like that. They're like, it's so friendly in terms of like upskilling their people, because I think managers of these roles are very aware, like, this is an entry level role. People don't
Hmm.
necessarily want to be here forever, or maybe some people want to make it a career out of it, and that's fantastic as well. And they're just with it. They're like, all right, we know you're gonna, do a few years here. Let's get you like to be like improve your skills and all that kinds of things. I know that was the case for my role. You mentioned that's the case for your
Yeah.
when you were in support as well. But yeah, moving on to that question that I mentioned about which role before your current role,
Hmm.
I would say, was the one that just the most challenging, where you feel like you were just really really had to put in the work, really had to like which role where you were like, I have no idea how I'm going to figure this out the most?
I can tell you that.
Yeah.
So it was in 2011,
All right.
and I went to this university, and I was again the only admin, but I wasn't just a Windows admin. I was also the Linux admin. And Linux was not my strong suit. It was not my first love, right? So I had to learn so much on the job. Not that I'd never experienced Linux, because, like I told you, in my first job, as this network person, everything mostly, other than server, mail and uh, file servers and things,
Uh-huh.
Linux was our DNS and our DHCP, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was my first foray. And I kind of played with it in that Windows sysadmin position, but it wasn't my job. They had Linux admins. 2011, I got to this job where I had to do both Windows and Linux. And I was just like, I can do this. And now we're getting to the point where it's like there's YouTube, there's more information out there, there's training. I'm learning these things on the fly. And we had multiple Linux distros. And I was just like, nah, I don't even want to do this game, because everybody does something a little bit different. So I was able to help get us to settle on
Yeah.
a platform, and it just happened to be Rel at the time. Like, we're gonna be a Red Hat shop. Like, I'm not even playing these games with all these distros. So that's where it started. Like, I felt it. When Why was it challenging? One, because I was the only person. I had no one to like gotta go to. I was used to being around people where I can be like, excuse me, can you help me? Like,
Yeah.
there was nobody, and
Yeah.
it was very isolating. I had to level up in a way that I wasn't used to, but I felt that during the course, and I was there for 8 years. So at some point, I saw more people come in, and it was just like, this is my thing. I got so comfortable, and I felt like I had not mastered, but if you're somewhere so long, you feel like it's your second skin.
Yeah.
I know
Absolutely.
this stuff. I know my environment. I know what I'm doing. And I loved it. Like, so that was the biggest challenge for me, but it also felt like the biggest accomplishment for me. And then things kind of went sideways, and I just did a whole like, so that was like this, but that was also a catalyst. Like,
Yeah.
I've gained all this knowledge. What else can I do with it? Right? What else can I do with it? So
Right.
um that's when I started thinking
So
about web development. So that's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother
so
story.
it's interesting that you mentioned Linux, because it's one of the skill sets that I think if people take the time to just become comfortable with it, anything else that you pick up current day is going to be substantially easier. Whether that be
Preach.
cloud, whether that be DevOps, whether that be even new things like even programming, because when you think of like Bash, then you think scripting, then you think programming, right? Absolutely, anything that you want to dive into, having just maybe like a just being comfortable, just understanding how to use commands, how to like put together pipelines, how to like filter your output in the terminal, things like that.
Yes.
Everything else becomes substantially easier, because when you think about like cloud, which is all the rage these days, right?
Yep.
What is the cloud? It's just a bunch of Linux servers, right? And networked together, right? So
That's it. Literally, that is all it is.
yeah, and Linux is something that I feel like most people don't tap into at the beginning of their like maybe learning. I know I didn't. I like dove straight into like platform like Azure, AWS, things like that. Then some programming, and then later on, I didn't really become comfortable with Linux until maybe like 2 years ago.
Mm,
And then at the beginning of this year, I spent like a solid 2 to 3 months just doing something different in Linux every single day, and I wrote like blog posts every single day. And now, like full circle, now working a lot more with the Azure CLI and things like that. It's like everything is just so much easier because of it. And I highly
exactly.
recommend, if you want to dive into any field in tech, give yourself some time to just learn some Linux, learn some commands. There are some fantastic books out there, but honestly, if you just use like the man pages, I don't know, like what was your approach on picking up Linux? I assume like you were just trying to translate your skills from like your Windows to like, all right, how do I
Yes.
do this to Linux, right?
Yes. That's
Yeah.
basically what it was. So I'm going to say this. My old boss, Jeff, that gave me that opportunity, he said to me, Angela, I know you like the GUI, but make sure you can do everything that you're doing in the GUI on the command line.
Yeah.
Make it a point. Now, I didn't internalize that for a good 10 something years. Like I would do it for some things and it's just like, nah, it's kind of easier. Let me just do it this way. Well, think about all the time I lost, right? When I didn't internalize that amazing piece of information.
Right.
And I kicked myself because in 2011, I got into this position and I felt like I had to relearn everything. And it was my own fault because he had given me such great advice to me. I thought it was priceless.
Right.
Another thing is learning networking. You can't, I don't want to say you can't, but not to be able to understand networking and how packets move and troubleshooting network issues without that comfort level, understanding what a subnet is and how to like, I feel people kind of jump over that and
Hmm.
not really understand those two skills. A little bit of networking and a little bit of Linux go so far. Like, how can you cloud without either? With
Ex-
either of those
and
skills?
pair them together, and you have infinite possibilities. I feel like
Hello.
like I remember struggling because like traffic wouldn't hit a virtual machine, and I had just had no idea how to troubleshoot it, right? Whereas now, like now I can put together a virtual network. Now I can divide it properly with subnets. Use route tables properly. Use private IP addresses, public ID addresses. Like appropriately, SSH into things, generate keys and all these kinds of things. It's just like your basics. And the thing about like commands like Linux and networking is that a lot of networking tasks are sort of accomplished via commands. So you kind of get like you're working on
Yep.
both at the same kind of time, so they go hand in hand. Also, I find networking fun. Like I know a lot of people think it's like
Really?
boring and things like that, but I like being able to like, all right, this doesn't work. I can't like I visit the IP and I can't see it. Let me go figure it out. Let me go see like what's wrong and stuff like that. Also, I really like networking diagrams. Just looking at them, I think it's very neat. Like I want to get like some complex ones and print them out and like hang them up. I think they look really cool. I don't know
That's
about
pretty
y'all,
cool. That's pretty cool. I
but I
mean,
think they look pretty neat.
have
But
you
yeah,
ever, hold
absolutely.
on.
Go ahead. But absolutely, Linux and networking. If you have those under your tool belt in terms of like tool belt in terms of skills, you're gonna be really set up for success.
I agree.
There's and the cloud does do like it does us not a disservice, obviously, but like they it abstracts a lot of this like these things. But if you understand just a little bit, just enough to be dangerous, infinite possibilities, right? I want to dive into sort of like so you
Yes.
mentioned like you just continuously always learning, but in terms of uh like what you were focused on learning at the beginning, where I'm assuming it was a little bit more general to like where you're at now, like do you find yourself sort of like just trying to keep up with the new things, or are you more focused on like stuff with your role, or maybe you give yourself like once a month to like just try out something completely different? Like what does your routine look like in terms of upskilling?
Right now, it's literally trying to keep up with the role. Because technology moves fast at a software company, it's always iterating that because we're open source software company. So just the level of change that happens across all of the products is staggering. And to be successful in my job, I have to be able to keep on par with that because I'm talking to our customers, our clients, helping them. You know what I say? Like, we're trying to help them build these solutions. I have to be able to talk that language as best I can, right? So it is a constant, you know, learning the newest thing, staying up on top of enablement. What's the new features? Reading release notes, taking the new courses when they come out. It's constant. But for somebody like me who really gets a kick out of just learning the thing,
Yeah.
like, it can be something that I know I'll never use. And you would say, well, that's kind of wasteful. Why would you waste your time on that? Because everything is kind of related to some degree.
Yeah.
So to be able to kind of dive into something that might not be your minor or your major, but something ancillary, why not kind of go through a little course? Or this is why I love YouTube. There can be something, oh my God, I have no idea what this means. I don't know
Hmm.
how it interacts. Search for the term. Probably somebody has done a video on it, right?
Yeah, most likely.
Trouble, someone's already done the work for you. So why not, look at their content, see if it'll help, see if it expands your understanding. I think the greatest thing anybody can ever do is put content out there that's helping people
Right.
for free, because y'all don't have to do it. Like, we're always relying on the Stack Overflows and using Google to within an inch of its life.
Yeah.
We don't have, this is how we do things now. When I started, there was no Google. So either you know it or you didn't. So it's like, I love the fact that information is just at our fingertips now. And it's there if we want it. And because some people just want it, then this is an amazing time to be in this field, because it's so much out there, and it's for the taking.
Absolutely. I think now is, if you want it, you'll find a way to get at it. Education, I think, is, I guess, the lack of educational content is not the what it was before. Like, I even look at like cloud specific educational content from when I was getting AWS certified, which was my first certification, which I want to talk to you about certifications in a little bit. But I think it was 2016 that I started to like really sit down and study every single day, like 2 hours AWS stuff. And I look at the educational cloud space now, it's completely different. And we just think like that's only like a difference of like 4 to 5 years, right? And now
Yes.
it's just like back then you could probably find like so the AWS, like the Certified Solution Architect Associate, which is probably like the most popular one, and I was
Mhm.
studying for the developer one. It was tough. There was like my couple courses out there, and I took absolutely everything that I could find. And now it's like there's new stuff every single day, right? So now it's like the best time. I mean, obviously, I think it's always going to be the best time, because I think just the tech space now is just forever changed. It's like if you want
Yes.
to get into it, there's no really real nothing really stopping you in terms of like
Nope.
education. And I just think like that's just going to get better and better and better and better. Obviously you get the issues of like, how do you really know what is quality and stuff like that, but I think, we're never really going to get rid of that. You just kind of have to like dive into it. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't
Yes.
work. Also, something that might work for you might not work for me. Give things a try. Give yourself the opportunity to learn how you learn, right? Like that's like so
Exactly.
important. Like, are you more a video person, you more a text person, you more a book person, tutorial person, like whatever it might be. There's something out there for you.
Yep.
But I wanted to tap into certifications because I feel like they most of us have like a love-hate relationship with certifications. I think if you're on LinkedIn, if you're on Twitter, it's so easy to see someone who, I don't know, takes like 30 certifications a month, and then someone who's like completely bashing on them, saying that they're completely useless or something like that,
Mm.
right? I want to hear your take on them. Do you have any? Are you maybe studying for any? Do you plan on taking some for the future? I know Red Hat certifications have just always been in demand. I hear about people studying for Red Hat certifications like every single day. I get comments on my channel about Red Hat, all these kinds of things. I know they're pretty tough as well. So yeah, just
Girl.
I want to hear I want to hear your opinion on certifications.
So personally, I before I got here, I never had to have a certification,
Mhm.
but I found them as an amazing vehicle to learn some foundational information about X, right? So I took, LPI Linux Essentials. I taken the Cloud Practitioner. I taken the AWS Solution Architect. They were just amazing primers, right? If you want to learn something very foundational, these companies that are putting these resources together to, especially because it's their product, they
Yeah.
want you to know their product. So
Hmm.
they're going to give you the opportunity with that 1 year free trial to use as much as their product as you possibly can, especially if
Right.
you're studying for a certification. Um, I think they're a great way to get some foundational information. Now, the way that certifications have gone, they have given you the opportunity to take more advanced certifications so you
Hmm.
can build upon all of the knowledge that you've acquired taking those previous certifications. That is priceless. Like, I am pro cert. Um,
I love that,
and and
professor.
and and not even if you're taking them to oh, I need this cert. I need to get all the certs. I'm collecting them like Pokemon cards. That's cool too. But what you're doing is you're learning something very foundational. And if you
Hmm.
take subsequent exams, you're building upon that knowledge. And that to me is like, that's the money shot. I if even if you don't want to take the exam and you've gone through the materials and you know the work and you've, so what? Like, you can't, no one can take that away from you, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, certs
absolutely.
expire, right? Yeah, they do. You got to re-up and do things like that. That's cool too. um I know they're not for everybody. Some people don't test well, not to
Yeah,
say that they don't know the content,
yeah,
but testing in certain scenarios can be very stressful for people, so I get that. The adaptive exams are super hard. People say, oh, true false, multiple choice, yeah, that's easy. And you never know how people can perform in those types of situations. One, you're
right.
timed. Two, you've never, they may be wording things that you've never seen worded this way, so it is a challenge. So
You're
to anyone,
proctored. Usually, you're being watched the entire time.
exactly. So like, you don't want to move your mouth because someone might think you're talking to somebody on the other side.
Yeah,
Like, you have to be so, it is such a stressful time. So shout out to anybody who is currently studying for an exam, who has taken exams, who understand their value.
yeah. Hmm.
And if you've never studied for an exam, like, I don't know how you can speak to it because you've never done it, but
Yeah.
the just going through that process of like doing the learning from beginning to end to learn something, I think that's invaluable.
You touched upon a couple of things that I 1000% agree and sort of want to echo a little bit on. One, where certifications are now and where they're headed is, I think, very different than where sort of they started. I think it was
Yes,
a
ma'am.
lot easier for you to memorize things, to use exam dumps and things like that for previous versions of certifications, where now you have your specialties with, now you have a lot more lab focus, lab sort of like or like case study focus kind of things, where yes, they might be multiple choice, but it's kind of hard for you to like just
Yeah.
memorize things, which I love certifications are also headed to more role based and then like super general, so you can get as like as specific as you'd like, right? Security, identity, administration, DevOps, architecture, all those kinds of things now have their own set of certifications.
Exactly.
And when you think about like, all right, let's think about like you want to be a cloud engineer, then you're going to do some Azure ones, some AWS ones, some GCP ones, but you can also go and get some Linux ones, some security ones. You can really build your own sort of like degree. It's not going to be like four. I mean, I guess you could put like 4 years worth of certifications
Of
like put
course.
it together, right?
Do
But
it. People
you
do
can
it.
really give yourself like I don't know, let's say like 6 months, and each month you're studying for one, and but you're really taking your time to dive into that content and personalize it for you. And when you compare like certifications, like the cost of a certification, which oftentimes you can get your job to pay for.
That's true.
Just like a fun fact, or like a tip for you to look into, for the chat to look into, in terms of like, hey, maybe your job is willing to pay. It's a lot more affordable than traditional college, traditional like degree programs or anything like that, right? And I just think overall they're great. I personally love. I have an expired AWS certification, which was my first cloud certification. I have the AZ900, which is the Azure Fundamental certification, and I only took that because I have a love hate relationship with tech Twitter. Sometimes there's just some tweets that like really get into like kind of like get under my skin, and I know I shouldn't be this way, but I'm just being honest. And it was someone saying that like, oh, the AZ900 is like so easy, like it's such a pointless certification, things like that.
Ooh.
And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take it for myself because I don't want to speak upon things that like I knew it wasn't easy just because I saw the content and I was thinking I
Right.
was like a beginner. But I had at that point like 2 years of Azure experience. And I'm like, I'm not gonna study. I'm just gonna go take it. I barely passed that certification. Barely. When I'm saying, I was like, I'm pretty sure if I got one more question wrong, I would have not passed it. So the only reason I took it was because I want to be able to tell like people, I had my YouTube channel. I'd be able to tell people like, this is a great place for you to start. And entry level certifications are also newer. Like they were like, it was like associate level and then professional level, and then entry level ones were like
Yes.
introduced. And overall, I just wanted the experience of taking one so I could, sort of recommend to others, right? I don't want to just like recommend things that I haven't done. And then I have the Linux Essentials, which is my favorite certification that I've ever like, and I've studied for like the Azure, sort of like the equivalent of the Solution Architect one, and I've studied for like a bunch of them. I just haven't taken any of them. Mainly because I don't know, I just don't like scheduling things. But I've studied a lot of content around like
It's a
certification stuff.
commitment.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I mean, I think I'll be available at 11, but I don't really know. I want the option to not have to like be available at 11 kind of thing, right? But I would
Exactly.
study the content every day because I genuinely enjoy it. But studying for that Linux certification, the Linux Essential, which is like I guess one of the like the most entry level, it's the LPI, the one that you mentioned.
Yeah. Hmm.
it was tough. That took me 3 months of studying every single day, getting hands on with the command line, writing notes and stuff like that. It was probably one of the best time I've had studying for something
That's
ever, really.
awesome. That's
Um,
awesome. You
and
have a
and
best you have a best time studying for a cert. I have a best time studying for a cert. I have to tell you that story, but continue. Continue.
yeah, absolutely, and I think you mentioned like people sort of like collecting them all like Pokemon cards and things like that. Uh, everyone, I guess everyone has their reasons and things like that. I think your time is best spent, in my personal opinion, is grabbing things that are fundamental and are definitely going to help your current role and where you want to get to and things like that. But you could probably find like hands-on projects that you can work on that might be worth a little bit more of your time than studying for another cert or something like that. So you kind of like just pair things, mix things up, and don't necessarily you have to like worry about getting every single certification out there. Like I think Azure has like, I don't know, 20 certifications now. You don't need them all. So like don't necessarily worry about that, but like a couple of solid certifications, some projects, and in terms of like getting started or getting into the field, and you're good to go. But I would love to hear about like a cert that you really enjoyed studying for.
Yes. So it was the AWS Certified Solution Architect. And
It's a
fun
tough one.
fact,
It's a
that
tough one.
that one was I had put out on Twitter, like I love Twitter. Shout out to Twitter. Shout out to Lindsay. So I said I wanted to study with someone to take this exam. Like I
Oh,
just felt like I wanted to do this with somebody, right? I'd never done this before. This young lady, she's in Spain. She's from Milwaukee. She lives in Spain. She replied, we studied together 3 times a week for about 2 months, right? I'd never
wow,
met
very
this
cool.
woman. We had the best time. It was learning from her because, she was newer to tech than I was. And I'm being able to impart some wisdom to her
Hmm.
because, she hadn't done these things. So we learned and bounced off of each other. We had scheduled our exams for the same day. She had to go to a whole nother town. Like she had to get a hotel and stay somewhere because it
What?
was so remote from where she was.
Right, right.
Right. So she had to make travel arrangements, go to this place where she can take this exam. Me, I just drove up 95 and went to the testing center,
Yeah.
and we scheduled it for the same day and we both passed. And it
I
was
bet
the
that felt amazing.
best feeling ever. Like we worked so hard. We learned from each other. We learned a lot. I mean, you can't help but have learned a lot. It was 2018, or 2019, whatever it was. I don't know, 2019, because it's my cert expires next year. She hit me up. She was like, you know our cert expires next year. We're going to do this again, right? I was like, I wouldn't want to do it any other way with not another person. I had the best, and I've had some bad cert experiences. Like I failed and think it. You go in and you still fail. You like, okay, I'm about the dumbest. Like you just be. I'm so hard on myself. So for some people, failing a certification means nothing. It's like, oh, I'll try it
Yeah.
again. For me, it shakes me to my core because I
Hmm.
like to learn and I feel like I've kind of mastered. So maybe I have to figure out how to not be so caught up in like, yeah, you failed, just do it again. And I'm
Yeah.
working on that. I'm not there yet, but I'm working on that. Just that confidence. And you learn something at every pass, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
If you fall down, get back up. Oh, what domains did I screw up? Okay, let me go back in here. And you look at them with a different set of eyes, right? You know what you saw, you know what needs to be tweaked in your head, and you approach it more holistically. And when you get that opportunity to go back in and sit down and you like crush it, man, that feels good. Man, that
You
feels good.
and I imagine like not you're not only studying for you now, you're also studying because you know how much it matters to your study buddy, right? And then I
Yes.
think this is just a fantastic example of how much power and how much sort of like you can improve when you lean into community. And I think in
Yes.
tech, if you're not on maybe on social media or something like that, it's easy for you to feel like tech is just about skills, 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 skills. What's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And we often forget that we're people. Like
Yes.
you admitting to the fact that failure with certifications kind of like makes you feel some kind of way. The fact that I've like, I've said like, oh, when people say certain things on social media, like it kind of gets under my skin and stuff like that. I think we don't have these spaces in tech as much as like other fields where we can just talk about like just being humans, that we're humans in this space, in this field, and how much power we can get from leaning into our community. Having conversations like these. I love this idea of having a study buddy and like maybe a study group, and it's actually something that I've been trying to sort of plan with here with the reactor and stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll have to chat a little bit more about this, maybe see if we can come up with something that'd be like, but just fantastic. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about community and how, mainly, how do you do such a good job of not just being 100% tech? Because like I mentioned like at the beginning of the stream, I like the tweets that most impact me from you are like, oh, there's wonderful technical content, but like the ones that remind me to like get up and stretch and sort of like that work-life balance that you have
Yeah.
are just like fantastic. And what are some things that you do to sort of strike that balance? What's your relationship with work-life balance? What are some maybe advice that you have for other people in the field on how to accomplish that?
Well, I used to not be a remote worker. I worked in an office with a team and I loved it. Like I liked that sense of being around people because people, as an introvert, you would say, "Oh my God, people." But there were certain people that I could kind of lean on and I
Mm-hmm.
miss that community, right? I miss having those folks around. So now that I'm 100% remote, it is you have to get creative. We've really had to get creative over the past couple of years. And I found that I was really, this is actually pre COVID, where I was really heavily into like the code newbies community. And
Mm-hmm.
I've met amazing people in that community. I was heavily in my local GDI chapter, Girl Develop It. They're not the same as they were many, many years ago, but I leaned into that community because, to be honest, there weren't a lot of women sysadmins,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm talking early 2000s. I would go to conferences and meet, and they weren't even meetups, and I'm the only person who looks like me, and it's like people aren't really friendly, and I'm not really outgoing, and it was just really weird. But
Yeah.
these communities were so welcoming, right?
Yeah.
They accepted you, whoever you were, whatever your questions were. No question was too dumb. Everybody had something to contribute. So those are the spaces that I treasure the most. So much so, I had started one around Python. I started one around Security Plus, and these people are now a part of my tribe. Like, even though I've kind of like backed away or have moved to different things, you still can lean on that community because everybody has a question. Everybody is trying to move forward. Everyone's trying to find a new job. And I find that I have thrived and grown as a person because of these communities. I appreciated them for everything that they've given to me. And I'm always giving back to them because it's not a one-way street. You can't
Yeah,
take
absolutely.
without giving. And I'm just very grateful for all of those communities that have helped me become this person right now. If it weren't for communities, I don't think I would be at Red Hat. If it weren't for communities, I wouldn't be doing this podcast, right? So
Yeah.
you have to, you know, be mindful of what it gives and always be willing to give back to it. That's
Uh,
just my personal thing.
1000%. I tweeted this, I think it was yesterday or this morning, that I was able to turn my YouTube channel into a role at Microsoft, and YouTube being such like a community driven kind of thing, and the fact that like community has given so much to me and I've like given so much to them. It's like you never really know what anything can turn into these days. You don't
Yeah.
know who you're going to meet. You don't know what you're going to learn and stuff like, but lean into it. But don't forget to also, as much as you receive, give, but give out
Yes.
of like, you know, try to make connections because you genuinely want to make connections, not because of like, oh, I need to
Where
get
you
this out of
work.
you. Yeah, right,
Hmm.
right. You work and things like that. One thing I wanted to ask before, I know we have like a few more minutes, and
Yes.
if the chat has any questions, let us know right now because I know you're
Okay.
not running on a tight schedule. But what's it like working at Red Hat? And what's it also like? What's the difference between working you've noticed between working at like a small company to just like an absolutely massive company?
Whew, girl, it is like night and day,
Yeah,
right? It's nice, I would, walk down the hall and it would be like cheers and everyone's like Norm and everyone knows your name and it's awesome. And then
right.
you come, you're a big fish in a little pond. And then you come to Red Hat and it's like, okay, Who do I ask for, how do I get access to this? Because one, we're all remote. How
Yeah.
do you build that rapport? It is
Mm-hmm.
so different. It's a great company. It's a huge company. The opportunities. I find that I've met so many people who say, "Oh, I didn't start doing this. Oh, I was here a couple of years and I wanted to do something else and I pivoted." Like, and it's like, how can you like turn on a dime like that?
Yeah.
Well, Red Hat affords you the opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
right? It gives you the opportunity to grow into different roles. You're never stuck where you are, right? I'm a solution architect now. Who knows where I'll be in 2 years, 5 years, right? It could be anything. And that's the benefit of working at such a huge company that has, that does a lot of good. I have it's the end of the year. It was, Giving Tuesday, and I'm filling out like I'm donating to all these charities. What do they do? Match,
Match.
right? So that is huge. I've never had that opportunity, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they're helping me be a better person.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, and I know there's no company that's perfect. There's no panacea for the perfect job, the perfect
Absolutely.
role. But if you get a place that kind of listens to you and allows you room to wiggle and grow and to
Uh-huh.
make mistakes and fail fast, that is very important. I
Mm-hmm.
I I was very afraid of that when I first got here, but it's like, you know what, screw it up now, learn from it, and this is the people around you support you in that, where they, because they're human too, they make mistakes. I think Red Hat does that really well. That sense of community and openness permeates through everybody. And once you drink the Kool-Aid, it becomes really a part of you.
And I think when you're getting started, it's sort of hard for you to feel like that you'll ever be in a place where you're just fulfilled, where you feel like you can
Yes.
truly grow into what you want to and discover things that you may not even know that you're interested in, or roles that you may not even know that you're interested in. But trust me, the opportunities are out there. You will have to put in the work, and your timeline might look completely different than ours.
Yes.
But
Yes.
it's doable. There are so many jobs out there in tech, and I mean, if you put in the work, obviously study a lot, get hands on a lot,
Yes.
and like now
Yes.
with like how easy it is to spin up a Linux VM and sign up a free trial here and there. Like it's so easy to get hands on now versus like, remember, you probably had to like actually physically rack stuff before, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And I don't miss that at all.
Now
I
you
don't
just have
miss
to
that at
like
all.
click and or maybe a few commands and then you got a VM spin.
Exactly.
You got
Although
it.
I do have a rack with some servers in my office, but that's a whole nother story. That's the old me not being able to let go, I think.
But I mean, it's still pretty cool to like find ways to get physically hands on with tech when it's all just behind the screen. I've been wanting to start my own home lab,
Hmm.
but we'll probably have to dive into that
Oh
in
yeah.
another
Oh
session.
we. Oh definitely. I would love to talk about home labs.
Home labs,
Yes. Yes.
awesome. And the absolute last question is, if
Yes.
you could recommend everyone in the chat to learn something, like pick up something today, what would it be? Like
It.
maybe like your favorite skill or something.
We always talk about the technical. Linux. I think anyone if you're a developer, if you're UX, if you're cloud, if you're DevOps, Linux is the skill to learn.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to be mindful that our soft skills are just important. And I don't really like the fact that they're called soft skills, but you
Yeah.
need to be human and you need to meet people where they are and you need to see the humanity in people. So if you have like a big head ego where you thinking your poop don't stink, like you really need to know how to approach people and
Right.
be kind. Like
Yeah.
if you can't be that and you think you're going to work in tech, no one's going to want to help you. Like you're because you don't know everything, right? You always have to reach out and sometimes get some assistance. You have to give it to get it, I think. So being kind is definitely having great people skills, having great communication skills. And I know you said more one, but the humanity of people sometimes get left behind. And I think that is an important thing that we sometimes need to focus on, you know?
I think it's a solid combo: Linux and communication skills.
Yes, ma'am.
I love it. Angela, thank you so much for joining me. I know Rebecca usually hops on at the end of the stream to just give everyone a little reminder. I dropped a couple of links to your Twitter, to the podcast that you do at Red Hat. That I recently
Thank
listened to the one
you.
about tech hubs, and I listened to the one about technical interviews as well. That was a couple of months back
Yeah, yeah.
for some research that I was doing. But everyone, go check that out. Thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
us in chat. Make sure you follow Angela on Twitter.
It was a pleasure.
We'll do this again for sure. Absolutely.
Yes,
We'll have to
ma'am.
make this a recurring thing or something like that.
All right. All right. Take care, everybody. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you all so much.